A lot of engineers get close to $200,000, $150,000, $160,000, $170,000, sometimes even $180,000. And then something changes. Not slowly, not subtly, something structural. Progress stops behaving the way it used to. Before this point, the path feels predictable. You improve, you gain experience, you take on more responsibility, and compensation follows. Effort translates into movement. But near $200,000, that relationship breaks, because you are no longer moving inside a scalable system. You are approaching a selective one, and selective systems behave differently. At lower levels, growth is driven by distribution. More roles, more opportunities, more space to move, which makes progression feel accessible. But at higher levels, growth is driven by selection. Fewer positions, higher expectations, more competition, and less margin for error. Which means progression is no longer guaranteed, even if you continue improving. Because improvement alone does not determine movement at this level. Position does. Where you sit in the system, what you influence, what you control, how your role affects outcomes. These factors start to dominate, and they are not evenly distributed. Two engineers can have similar experience, similar skill, similar output, and still end up in different ranges, because one is positioned closer to control, and the other is not. This is where most engineers misread the situation. They assume they are close, that they just need more time, more experience, more output. But the final step is not incremental. It is structural. It requires a shift in position, not just improvement inside the same role. Because at this level, roles behave differently. They are not built to scale. They are built to concentrate. Fewer people, more responsibility, higher impact, and higher visibility, which creates a constraint. You cannot expand these roles indefinitely. You cannot promote everyone. You cannot distribute control evenly. At some point, it consolidates, and where it consolidates, value concentrates. This is why the final step feels blocked, not because you are not ready, but because the system is not expanding that layer. There is also a competition shift. As you approach $200,000, you are no longer competing broadly. You are competing against a smaller group, with similar experience, similar capability, and similar positioning, which increases selectivity and reduces the probability of movement, even if you are qualified. There is also a timing constraint. Openings at this level are not continuous. They appear, they get filled, and then they disappear, sometimes for long periods, which means progression depends on alignment, skill, position, and timing, all at once. And that alignment is rare. This is why many engineers stay near the same range, not because they lack ability, but because the system did not open the path at the right moment. There is also a visibility shift. At lower levels, output is visible, work is measurable, contribution is clear. But at higher levels, value shifts away from output, toward decisions, and decisions are harder to measure, which increases selectivity, because the system becomes more cautious about who it allows into those roles. There is also a pressure layer. As compensation increases, expectations increase, visibility increases, tolerance for mistakes decreases, and responsibility becomes continuous, which means staying at that level is as selective as reaching it, and that further reduces distribution. This also explains why switching companies sometimes works. You move into a different system, a different structure, a different distribution of roles, and that can create an opening, but it is not reliable, because the same constraints exist everywhere, just with different timing. So over time, the same pattern reappears. You move up, you approach the range, and then progression slows again, because the underlying structure remains unchanged. This creates a very specific experience. You are close enough to see it, close enough to understand it, but not consistently able to access it. And that gap is not random, it is structural, because the system does not assign $200,000 broadly, it assigns it selectively, to positions that control outcomes, not just contribute to them. So when you find yourself near $170,000 or $180,000 and progress slows, you are not failing. You are reaching the edge of a scalable layer. And the next step requires something different, not more effort, but a shift in position, because that is what the system responds to, not incremental improvement, but structural change. And without that shift, the gap tends to remain, no matter how much you improve within the same role. This is part of what I break down step by step in the $200,000 system below.